Welcome, story explorers, to the Vortex of Tales. Tonight, we dive into a brand new legend. Today's tale is The Shutter's Secret. Before we unlock this mystery, a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to join our growing circle of story lovers. Now, let the journey begin. The Shutter's Secret. Part I. The Discovery, Setup and Inciting Incident. Chapter 1. The Quest for Authenticity. The digital world felt like a vast, glittering lie to Maya Vane. At 24, she was a freelance photographer, and every morning she woke up feeling a little more like a fraud. Her latest gig had been for a new organic coffee chain, a parade of perfectly lit, soul-crushingly sterile shots of foam art and pristine blonde wood tables. Every image was a monument to the aesthetic of effortless perfection, filtered and manicured until it bore no resemblance to life's messy, vibrant truth. She sat at her battered wooden desk in her tiny two-room apartment in the older, atmospheric part of the city. The space itself was a sanctuary against the modern world. Walls lined with film canisters, vintage photo paper, and darkroom supplies that smelled faintly of acetic acid and nostalgia. Her laptop screen glowed, mocking her with the final, polished JPEGs. "It has no soul," she muttered to her reflection in the dark screen, running a hand through her perpetually messy dark hair. Her grandmother, a woman who'd obsessively documented her entire life, not on a phone, but in thick, heavy scrapbooks filled with glued-down memories and handwritten notes, used to tell her, "A picture is a window, Maya. If you clean the glass too much, you'll just see your own reflection." Maya craved an uncleaned window. She was tired of reflections. Halloween was just around the corner, and the city was buzzing with a synthetic, commercialized, spooky cheer. But Halloween had always been Maya's favorite holiday, a chance for the truly strange and authentic to peek through the veil. This year, she decided she would chase a feeling, not a paycheck. She needed a project that had grit, that felt real, that captured the genuine, almost gothic spirit of the season. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, a mental checklist of what she needed for her authentic Halloween project. Item 1. A camera with history. A tangible link to the past, something that felt heavy and real in her hands. Chapter 2. Thorn and Sons Antiquities. The entrance to Thorn and Sons Antiquities was less a doorway and more a geological fissure in the urban landscape. It was tucked away on a side street the city seemed to forget to pave, nestled between a defunct laundromat and a brick wall covered in ancient ivy. The air outside was damp and chilly, but the moment Maya pushed open the heavy brass-handled door, a new kind of atmosphere enveloped her. The shop smelled of 100 years of collected secrets, dust, aged leather, dried potpourri that had long lost its scent, and a faint, metallic tang she couldn't place. The lighting was non-existent, replaced by the yellowed glow of gaslight-style lamps placed strategically to highlight a particularly unsettling porcelain doll or a tarnished silver mirror. It was a labyrinth. Every aisle was a precarious tower of forgotten lives, broken furniture, and whispering artifacts. At a desk near the back, piled high with ledgers and tarnished knickknacks, sat the proprietor, Mr. Silas Thorne. He was a man carved from worry, with thin silver hair combed neatly over a perpetually furrowed brow. His tweed jacket looked as old and dry as the wood around him. He didn't look up immediately, but she felt his immediate nervous awareness. "May I help you, miss?" he asked, his voice a dry rustle like old paper being smoothed out. "I'm looking for a vintage camera," Maya said, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. "Something truly old, film preferably." Mr. Thorne's gaze finally lifted. His eyes were pale, watery blue, and held a deep, unreadable weariness. He gestured vaguely toward a darkened corner near a display of antique medical tools. "We have some boxes of relics there, mostly junk, old brownies, simple things, nothing of much professional interest, I assure you." His attempt to dissuade her was too eager, too stressed. It was a subtle pullback that only served to draw Maya forward. She spent a long 10 minutes in the corner, her fingers trailing over cracked bakelite and rusted metal. Chapter 3. The Polaroid. Then she saw it. It wasn't in the box he'd indicated. It was set apart, displayed almost reverently on a small velvet stand beneath a cracked glass bell jar. It was an unusual, heavy-set vintage Polaroid camera, a model she didn't recognize, with a surprisingly thick leather casing that felt cold even in the shop's stifling air. A small engraved brass plate on the side read simply, "Instantaneous Traveler." It was unlike the clunky plastic model she knew. This one had an elegant, almost sinister air to it. The metal around the lens was dark, almost black, and the shutter button was a beautifully worn, pale jade. There was a faint, almost imperceptible design carved into the leather near the film eject slot. A woman's face, stylized and framed by heavy waves of hair, her eyes wide and hollow. Maya reached out and touched the cold metal of the lens housing. She felt a distinct, undeniable jolt, a momentary surge of cold that went up her arm. It wasn't static, it was a physical pull. She lifted the jar, the glass chime echoing in the silent shop. The camera was heavy, a promise of weight and substance. "This one," she announced, carrying it back to the counter. Mr. Thorne's reaction was immediate and unsettling. His pale eyes widened, and he actually flinched back, knocking a small copper bell onto the floor. "No, miss, not that one," he whispered, his hands trembling as he reached to retrieve the bell. It's a non-functioning display piece, a novelty. It takes an obsolete film type, quite impossible to find." "It's beautiful, though, and I've found compatible film before," Maya lied smoothly. "How much?" She watched him wrestle with himself. Fear and, oddly, a flash of duty fought a silent battle across his face. He finally sighed, a deep, defeated sound. $200, he said, naming a price far too low for such a unique item. "But I must insist you understand. It only captures what's real, Miss Vane. Be careful what you seek." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial rasp. Maya handed him the cash, a small, uneasy thrill running through her. She dismissed the warning as part of his old-school theatrical charm. "I'm looking for authentic shots, Mr. Thorne. I'm hoping this is exactly what I need." She put the heavy camera into her leather shoulder bag, and as she did, she felt a distinct sensation, as if the camera wasn't a passive object, but a cold, heavy eye, now staring out from the confines of the bag. Chapter 4. The Halloween Party. The mansion party was everything commercial Halloween promised: ostentatious, crowded, and slightly melancholy beneath the veneer of forced merriment. It was held in the old Blackwood Manor, a genuine piece of Victorian gloom that had been rented out by a tech millionaire for a massive costumed bash. The air was thick with cheap smoke machine fog, the scent of spiced rum, and the bass line of electronic music that vibrated the very foundations of the old house. Maya, dressed simply in a sleek black silk dress and a vintage masquerade mask, felt alienated but professional. This was the perfect setting, a mixture of ancient architecture and modern chaos. She wanted the camera to contrast the two. She found a quiet spot on the grand marble staircase, pulling the instantaneous traveler from her bag. Miraculously, she had found a small online supplier of the rare film. She loaded the pack carefully. The camera mechanism gave a low, hungry whir. She took her first photo of two friends, a vampire and a fairy, laughing by a makeshift cocktail bar. The flash was blinding, a pure white burst unlike any modern camera. The photo slid out with a low rasp. She watched it develop. The colors were muted, beautifully vintage, with soft focus edges. The people were laughing, captured in a warm, grainy moment. It was a perfect, artistic shot. Mr. Thorne was wrong, she thought. It's just an old, beautiful camera. She took a second photo of a group of elaborate Roman centurions clustered around a pillar. Again, the flash, the whir, the slide. The resulting image was also perfect, a tableau of costumed figures frozen in time. She began to relax, the thrill of the hunt returning. The camera was an aesthetic marvel. Chapter 5: The First Flash. Maya moved deeper into the mansion, drawn toward a darkened, forgotten conservatory that smelled of damp earth and dead flowers. She decided to capture the atmosphere itself. She focused on an empty, shadowed corner near a wrought iron bench, a spot where a thick, suffocating shadow seemed to pool. She framed the shot, holding the heavy camera steady against her chest. Click. The blinding white flash lit up the corner like a searchlight, leaving momentary after-images swimming across her vision. The camera whirred and the photo ejected. She walked out into the slightly better light of the main hallway to wait. The chemical smell rose from the developing paper, sharp and distinct. The image began to bleed through the black. First, the wrought iron bench appeared, then the damp floor and the looming shadow. All as expected. But then, as the contrast sharpened, a figure emerged from the depths of the shadow. It was a woman. She was not a costumed party guest. She wore a heavy, beaded 1920s flapper dress, her hair bobbed and severe. She was perfectly posed, leaning against the bench, but her eyes were not focused on the camera. They were focused on some unseen point high above her, her expression one of agonizing, frozen despair. She was shimmering, transparent around the edges, like heat rising from the pavement. She was clearly a ghost. Maya's breath caught in her throat, a sharp, cold intake of air. She stared at the photo, her mind scrambling for a logical explanation. Double exposure, light leak, a trick of the vintage film. She flipped the photo over, her hands shaking, searching for any technical fault. Then she looked back at the empty corner. The shadow was still there, but the figure was gone. Yet the feeling of something being watched remained. The image was too clear, too detailed to be an accident. The figure was standing in the exact spot she had aimed the lens. She finally focused on the figure's face. The sharp cheekbones, the severe hairstyle. It was the same woman whose face was carved into the camera casing. Chapter 6: The Second Shot. Fear should have driven her out of the house. Prudence should have demanded she put the camera back in the bag and flee. But the photographer's obsessive curiosity, that need to document the unseen truth, overcame her terror. I need a control shot, she thought, the sheer insanity of her reasoning lost in the adrenaline rush. I need to prove it's the camera, not the location. She moved away from the corner, through a small crowd of people, to a large oak-paneled doorway across the room. Her friend Michael, the vampire from the first photo, was saying goodbye to someone and turning to leave the party through the exit behind the doorway. "Michael, wait!" she called. He paused mid-turn, one hand on the doorframe. Maya lifted the heavy camera and took the shot. Click. Flash. The photo slid out. Michael smiled at her, confused by the abruptness. Maya didn't look up at him. Her eyes were fixed on the developing image. The frame cleared. The doorway appeared, the dark oak, the hint of light beyond. But where Michael should have been, stepping out, there was only the wall. And on the wall, in the space he had just occupied, the photo revealed a scene of sickening, decaying antiquity. A dark, rotting Persian rug was rolled up, barely containing the outline of something long and unsettling inside. The rug was wedged awkwardly behind the doorway, shoved into the shadows. The wall itself was cracked, peeling, and stained with what looks unmistakably like dark, dried blood. It was a scene of a hasty, violent concealment from the distant past. Michael, who was still standing in the physical space, turned back to her, concerned. "Maya, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya didn't answer. She looked from the horrific, centuries-old scene in the picture to the clean, normal doorway where Michael was standing. The camera wasn't just taking pictures of ghosts, it was taking pictures of disturbing historical events that had occurred in that precise location. The fear was cold and complete, but it was now laced with a raw, undeniable sense of discovery. This is not a mistake. This is real. Chapter 7. Obsession Takes Hold. Maya left the party in a hurry, not saying goodbye to anyone. The music, the lights, the laughter, it all felt deafening and unreal, like a backdrop to the twin horrors she now held in her hand. Back in her apartment, the air felt thin and safe. She spread the 4 photos out on her desk, separating the normal ones from the terrifying ones. The vampire and the fairy, normal, warm, present. The centurions, normal, warm, present. The shadow corner, the ghost of Ilara. The doorway, the hidden body/crime scene. She compared the ghost photo to the subtle carving on the camera. The resemblance was undeniable. The woman, whom Mr. Thorne had cryptically named Ilara, was somehow connected to the camera itself. Maya's mind began to spin, not with panic, but with a relentless intellectual fixation. She was a photographer. She was supposed to document the truth. Now she possessed a tool that documented a truth no one else could see. It was the ultimate artistic and historical document. "I have to know its story," she thought, her internal voice now a frantic, high-pitched insistence. "I have to document the rest of it." The camera lay beside the photos, heavy and silent. As she stared at the 2 horrifying images, her reflection caught in the dark lens. For a moment, she saw not herself, but a faint, hazy outline of a woman standing right behind her. The same woman in the flapper dress, her hands resting on Maya's shoulders like a cold, possessive weight. Maya jumped, spinning around. The room was empty. The sound she thought she heard, a faint, dry, almost silent click, must have been her imagination. She picked up the camera and hung the heavy strap over her neck. It felt cold but comforting, like a silent, demanding companion. Her fear was still a dull ache, but her curiosity was a raging fire. She had sought an authentic shot. She had found an authentic horror. And she was already too deep to turn back. Part 2. The Investigation and Rising Tension. Chapter 8. The Morning After. The city woke up, but Maya did not sleep. The 4 Polaroid photos were still spread across her desk, anchors in a reality that felt suddenly liquid and unreliable. She had spent the pre-dawn hours researching the camera. She scoured vintage camera forums, private collector databases, and patent records. Every search was a dead end. Polaroid Instantaneous Traveler yielded nothing but generic links to vintage travel cameras. She even took macro shots of the brass plate and the unique lens mechanism, reverse searching the images. Zero results. The consensus of the digital world was clear: the camera did not exist. This lack of digital footprint only solidified its horrifying authenticity. This was not a mass-produced item. It was a unique artifact, likely customized, perhaps even commissioned for a specific, dark purpose. It felt like a piece of history that the world had actively conspired to forget. The frustration was a thick, buzzing hum in her skull. The contrast was maddening. Her sleek, modern laptop, a gateway to infinite information, was powerless against a single, silent, antique object. She ran her fingers over the carved face on the camera's leather casing, tracing the hollow eyes of the woman, Ilara. The leather felt impossibly old, dry, and cold. A skin stretched over a silent, hungry entity. Maya realized the internet was the wrong tool. She needed to return to the source of the analog horror. She needed to see the man who sold her a piece of a ghost. Chapter 9. Return to the shop. Thorne & Sons Antiquities was colder than before, the atmosphere thick with foreboding, even in the morning light filtering weakly through the dusty windows. Mr. Thorne was where she left him, behind his fortress of old books, but he was visibly diminished. He hadn't shaved, and the worry lines on his face were deeper, etched by a sleepless night. Maya placed the two ghostly photos on the counter, the shimmering Ilara and the concealed corpse. The moment the images landed, Thorne gasped, pushing back his chair so quickly it scraped loudly against the wooden floor. He looked less like a shop owner and more like a captured criminal. "You took pictures?" he whispered, his voice thin with terror. "I told you to be careful. Why did you seek what should remain buried?" "Who is she, Mr. Thorne?" Maya demanded, pointing a trembling finger at Ilara's image. "And what did I buy? This isn't just an old camera, is it? It's not just broken." He wrung his hands, avoiding eye contact with the photograph. "She has a name. She has a memory. Her name is Ilara." "Ilara what? What is the story? She was standing right there. I know that mansion. Was it the Thorne family residence?" Thorne sank back into his chair, defeated. He was a dam finally giving way under pressure. "The camera is an abomination. It was a folly born of vanity and despair," he mumbled, talking more to himself than to her. "It belongs to my ancestor, Elias Thorne. He created it, or had it created, for his sister, Ilara. She was intensely vain, terrified of dying and being forgotten. Elias, consumed by her grief and his own peculiar genius for mechanics and arcane things, he bound her to it." Maya's mind raced. "Bound her? You mean he trapped her soul inside the camera?" "It's not so crude as that. He trapped her memory. He wanted her beauty to be eternal, to be perfectly captured just before the disease took her. The ritual, it ensures that any photo taken with that camera is a photograph of the past, a perfect record of the moment as Ilara sees it. She lives in the celluloid. Her presence bleeds into the images, Miss Vane. She sees the world through the lens you hold." He suddenly pounded his fist on the counter, the sound dull and flat. "You must destroy it, now. I can't. There's a protection, a ward. A Thorne can never destroy the traveler, but you can. Get rid of it and get out of this town. Forget the shots. They are written in ink and blood, not just celluloid." His desperate urgency was the final terrifying piece of evidence. Maya believed him, but the obsession was already too strong. "I can't, not yet. I need to know everything. I need to find the full story." Chapter 10. The Ghost's Gallery. Maya did not heed his warning. Instead, she performed a chilling, methodical experiment. She decided to test the extent of the camera's power in her most personal space, her apartment. She cleared her living room of clutter, making it as empty as possible. She stood in the center and snapped a picture of the northern wall. Flash, whir, slide. The photo developed slowly. The image showed her living room, but the furniture was wrong. The walls were painted a different color. A woman in a 1950s apron was visible near the window, crying into her hands. The next shot, aimed at the kitchen door, revealed an old man violently slamming a phone receiver into the cradle, his face contorted in anger. The camera was a time machine. Every blank surface, empty space, held a ghostly gallery of the lives lived there before. She took a final nervous shot of the empty doorway between her living room and her bedroom. As the image cleared, her blood ran cold. The scene was the same as her current reality: her own desk, her own clutter, her own lamp. But in the center of the room stood Ilara. She was no longer a vague, shimmering figure. She was sharp, in perfect focus, her dress a vibrant, almost tactile texture of beads and silk. Her face was turned toward the lens, toward Maya. Her eyes, those hollow, carved eyes, were fixed directly on her. And on her lips was a slow, terrifying, vacant smile. A smile of acknowledgement. She had seen Maya take the photo. She was now acknowledging the observer. Maya dropped the photo, the smell of the developer acrid in the air. Ilara had moved from being a piece of historical evidence to a palpable, aware entity in the present. Chapter 11. The Historical Archive. Armed with the name Ilara and the time frame of the 1920s, Maya found herself in the cool, silent solitude of the city archives. The air here was dry and thick with the scent of ozone and aging paper, a far more comfortable atmosphere than the musty air of Thorne's shop. She spent hours bent over the microfiche machine, the fluorescent light hissing above her. She went through local papers from 1922 to 1925. Her perseverance was rewarded. A headline, yellowed and dramatic, finally appeared. Heiress vanishes, Thorne Mansion tragedy. The article detailed the disappearance of Miss Ilara Thorne, the beautiful youngest daughter of the wealthy Thorne family, who lived in the mansion on the hill. She was known for her dazzling beauty and her relentless preoccupation with her own image. The tragedy had a peculiar hook. Ilara vanished without a trace shortly after the death of her fiancé, and her last known activity was a grand private photography session hosted by her older brother Elias, a recluse rumored to practice experimental science and spiritualitism. Subsequent articles mentioned the police investigation, the lack of a body, and the growing public speculation that she was either murdered by Elias or committed suicide, consumed by her own vanity. They all mentioned her obsession with the new photographic technologies and her desire to be eternally preserved. Maya discovered the terrible pieces of the puzzle. Ilara had willingly participated in a ritual devised by her brother, a ritual that would preserve her beauty forever in the unique mechanism of the instantaneous traveler. But Elias was not a saint. The journal entry confirmed the new observer part of the ritual was missing, and that Elias had trapped Ilara, not released her. Chapter 12. The Haunted Location. The obsession demanded a pilgrimage. The mansion. The beginning. The Blackwood Manor, where the Halloween party had been held, was now quiet, standing like a dark sentinel against the cloudy sky. Maya knew the partygoers had only used the front few rooms. The bulk of the mansion remained sealed, dust-sheeted, and untouched. She found a broken latch on a basement window near the back and slipped inside. The difference between the party's synthetic fun and the mansion's current state of decay was shocking. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of her own breathing and the heavy, rhythmic clunk of the camera swinging against her chest. She was back in the ballroom, the scene of her first ghostly shot. The atmosphere was crushing, heavy with stagnant air and a sense of enduring grief. Heavier than before, she realized. The party had driven the ghosts back. Now she was alone with them. She moved with an unnerving confidence, her photographer's instinct overriding her fear. She was here to document, to confirm. Chapter 13. The Hidden Room. Maya stood in the empty ballroom, taking photographs rapidly, like a desperate archaeologist documenting a find. A photo of the dance floor showed couples frozen in a graceful waltz from the 1920s. A photo of the windows showed the faces of Elias and a distraught maid looking out. She aimed the camera at a long stretch of plain, dark wallpaper near the back of the room. It was unremarkable, just a peeling floral pattern. Click, flash, whir. The developed image showed the wall as it was today, but the wallpaper was partially peeled away in the photograph, revealing a seam in the wood underneath, the subtle outline of a hidden door. Maya felt a spike of triumph. She traced the seam with her fingers, pressing the weak spots in the wood paneling. With a groan of ancient wood and rusted hinges, the door gave way, swinging inward to reveal a narrow, pitch-black space. She used her phone flashlight. The room was small, a perfectly preserved dressing room. A velvet chaise lounge, a vanity covered with dried-up crystalline jars of perfume and makeup, and a floor-length mirror shrouded in a drop cloth. A single, beautiful, pearl-colored flapper dress lay under a sheet on the floor. This was Ilara's sanctuary. And on a small writing desk, beneath a layer of undisturbed dust, was a leather-bound book, Ilara Thorne's journal. The warm, engaging, and clear male narrator voice, perfect for storytelling. The voice should have a calm and captivating cadence, with expressive intonation to bring the story to life, similar to an audiobook narrator. Chapter 14. The Journal's Truth. Maya sat on the dusty floor of Ilara's room, the camera, the physical manifestation of Ilara's curse, dangling near the journal, its cold weight pressing against her ribs. The handwriting in the journal was flowing and elegant at first, detailing mundane events and vain observations of Ilara's own beauty. But as the pages progressed, the tone grew dark, the script becoming frantic and erratic. Ilara wrote about her terror of fading, of the disease that was slowly taking her. She wrote about her brother, Elias, and his solution, a pact. Elias says I can stop the clock, that the new camera will not just take my picture, but keep me, exactly as I am now, within its mechanism. I shall be the spirit of its perfect memory. He calls it an eternal frame, and I shall be his masterpiece. Better to be a memory perfectly preserved than a woman decaying in the real world. The terror began when she realized the truth. It is a cage. He lied. I am not beautiful. I am a cold, starved shadow in a box of lenses. He will not release me. He must replace me. Elias spoke of the new observer, the one who will be foolish enough to buy the frame and stand where I stood. Only when the new, living soul is fully captured and bound by the final flash can my memory finally be complete. I must lure them. I must tempt them to take the ultimate self-portrait. The final entry, scrawled with desperate, heavy strokes, ended abruptly. She is coming. I see her in the lens, a new observer. She must take my place. The camera is getting heavy. The time is near. I must. The page stopped. There were only dark, spattered ink blots after that. Maya looked up from the journal, the realization washing over her in a wave of cold dread. Ilara was not just a ghost, she was a predator. And Maya, the lonely photographer obsessed with authenticity, was the perfect, willing prey. She felt the camera around her neck. It no longer felt heavy, it felt possessive. A familiar, dry, soft click came from the mechanism. She looked down at the journal. A freshly developed Polaroid photo was slipping out of the camera's film slot, resting against the final, frantic page. The image was of the chaise lounge, perfectly framed, and on the chaise lounge sat a beautifully dressed, hauntingly smiling Ilara. Her face was tilted, beckoning, and in the lower corner of the photo, written in a ghostly, elegant script, was a message. "Don't worry, dear. I've saved you the perfect seat." Part 3. The Climax and Resolution. Chapter 15. The Confrontation. Maya stumbled out of the mansion, the journal clutched in one hand, and the cold, heavy weight of the instantaneous traveler still slung around her neck. The cold brass of the lens felt like a muzzle pressed against her throat. She drove straight back to Thorne & Sons. It was late, but the single yellowed window light was on. She didn't knock. She burst through the door, the heavy brass clanging behind her. Mr. Silas Thorne was sitting at his desk, head in his hands, surrounded by the oppressive silence of his ancestors' failures. He looked up, his eyes immediately drawn to the camera on Maya's chest. "You found it," he rasped, his voice full of self-loathing. Maya threw the journal onto the desk. It fell open to the final frantic entry. "She wants to replace me, Mr. Thorne. She wants a new observer to take her place in the camera so she can finally be free. You knew this. You sold me a death trap." Thorne didn't deny it. He reached for a dusty, heavy bottle of whiskey and poured a trembling shot. "I knew the folklore, Miss Vane, the curse. My father told me, and his father told him. It's the shame of the Thorne family. Ilara's beauty was her poison, and my ancestor Elias was a madman who thought he could cheat time with dark science." He took a gulp of the whiskey, his eyes haunted. "The curse is a cycle. Elias's ritual was flawed. It traps the soul in the film's chemical memory, but it needs a living anchor, a new, willing subject to complete the image and stabilize Ilara's eternal frame. That's why she is active now. She senses your obsession, your artistic hunger. She knows you crave to capture something truly timeless." Maya felt a spike of anger and fear. "Why couldn't you destroy it? You said a Thorne couldn't." Elias was thorough. The camera's casing is warded, a protective layer of ritualistic iron and silver bound by his bloodline. Any Thorne who tries to destroy it would be instantly pulled into the mechanism to replace Ilara. It needed an outsider, a curious, obsessed outsider, to find the truth and willingly destroy it. I was hoping you would just see the ghost and throw the camera in the river. I never expected you to delve into the archive." He pointed at the camera. "Now she has you. You are in her sights. That cold feeling, that weight, that is her essence pressing on you, whispering promises of eternal glory, making you believe that your best work, your final, perfect shot, is only possible if you take that ultimate picture of yourself." He was right. Maya realized the constant, faint temptation she felt. The feeling that this camera validated her more than any digital follower or paycheck ever could was Ilara's insidious mental poison. Chapter 16. The Invitation. The confrontation had stripped away the mystery and left behind the terrifying reality of a duel. Maya left Thorne's shop with a singular purpose. She would not be Ilara's replacement. She had to fight. She walked home in the dark, the camera now humming faintly against her chest. She had to think like a photographer, like an antagonist, like Elias Thorne. The camera's power was chemical, optical, and psychological. Its strength was its ability to freeze time and memory. Back in her apartment, she spread the photos out one last time. She saw the new one, Ilara on the chase lounge. As she watched, the edges of the photo began to ripple and the image seemed to deepen. The photo was no longer just an image, it was a projection. A faint, high-pitched giggle echoed in the room, a sound dry as dust, but unmistakably feminine. Maya grabbed the camera, holding it up, aiming at the ceiling. Click, flash, whir. The photo ejected. It showed the white ceiling, but in the center, a new message had developed in a ghostly, elegant cursive, appearing like frost. Why deny your calling, dear? The light is perfect here. Your final frame will be sublime. Come back to the room. Come home. I've been waiting for a beautiful companion for a century. The mental pressure was immense. Her hands ached to aim the lens at her own face. One perfect portrait, one shot for eternity. But Maya fought back. Her hands, calloused from years of developing film, trembled with a new idea. The camera's life was the film's chemicals. Its memory was bound in the photographic process. She looked around her apartment, her eyes falling on her darkroom supplies, the thick, brown plastic bottles filled with chemical solutions. Fixer, stop bath, developer. The chemicals that create the memory, the chemicals that stop the decay of the photograph. What if the same chemicals could stop the curse? Chapter 17. The Final Picture. Maya knew she had to return to the mansion, to the source of the curse, Ilara's room. But this time, she wouldn't be going as an observer. She was going as an executioner. She packed a small bag, not with lenses or film, with 2 unmarked plastic bottles filled with highly concentrated, powerful film developer. Developer, the chemical that forces the image to appear, the agent of creation, the most potent ingredient in the camera's magic. If the camera was a living, magical entity, perhaps a massive dose of its own lifeblood, corrupted and concentrated, would destroy it. She drove to the Blackwood Manor one last time. The moon was obscured by clouds, casting the decaying structure in deep, absolute shadow. She slipped back into the hidden dressing room. The air was colder here than outside, and charged with a nervous, electric energy. She could hear the faintest sound of rustling silk. Ilara was close. She set her bag down. She did not open it immediately. Her strategy was psychological. She had to act like the perfect victim to draw Ilara out fully. She lifted the instantaneous traveler, positioning it in front of the ornate, dust-sheeted mirror. She didn't remove the sheet, but she focused on the shape beneath. "Ilara," Maya whispered into the silent room, "I know why you want me. I know you want a perfect picture, the final composition. I'm going to take it now." She positioned the camera. She lifted her hand to the jade shutter button. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. The sheet on the mirror began to shimmer violently. The spectral form of Ilara materialized. She was no longer a hazy shape on a photo. She stood in front of the mirror, her eyes wide with ravenous, triumphant desire. Her beautiful face was marred by an unnatural pallor and the desperate, hollow look of a starved soul. "Yes, my dear, the final frame. You will be my most beautiful companion," hissed, her voice a dry, echoing sound like static on an old radio. Her hands, bony and cold, reached out, moving through the air toward Maya's shoulders. Chapter 18: The Trap and the Choice. Ilara's spectral fingers wrapped around Maya's shoulders. The cold was shocking, paralyzing. Maya felt her consciousness dim, her focus narrowing only to the perfection of the camera's lens. A beautiful shot. Forever. Validation. Look into the lens, Maya. Ilara's voice resonated directly in her mind, like a siren's call. Take the picture. Release me. Maya's hand was moving toward the button. She could almost feel the release, the surrender of herself. But a final, desperate sliver of her own identity, the skeptical, grounded photographer, fought back. No, I don't photograph lies. I document the truth. In a sudden, violent motion, Maya wrenched free of Ilara's paralyzing grip. She grabbed the plastic bottle of developer from her bag. You want a perfect chemical memory, Ilara? You want the developer? Maya shouted, her voice echoing in the small room. Here it is. She unscrewed the cap and splashed the powerful, highly concentrated chemical directly onto the front of the camera. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The dark, oily developer chemical, the very lifeblood of the camera's ritual, hit the brass lens and the leather casing. The camera didn't just hiss, it screamed. A high-pitched metallic shriek that ripped through the silence. Ilara's spectral body recoiled violently, stumbling back toward the mirror. She shrieked, a piercing, soundless horror that felt like needles scraping across Maya's brain. Her body began to distort, her beautiful, preserved face melting and shimmering like a faulty projection. Chapter 19: The Shutter's End. Climax. The camera was burning from the inside out. Oily smoke curled from the film slot, smelling of fried copper and sour chemicals. Maya, though physically battered and bleeding slightly from the force of the psychic shock, held the camera steady. This was the final shot. She aimed the lens directly at the melting camera and the screaming, dissolving ghost. "This is your final frame, Ilara," Maya gasped, her lungs burning from the smoke. She jammed her finger down on the jade shutter button. Click. The flash that followed was not the brilliant white burst of normal film. It was a terrifying, blinding, pure white void. The light was so intense it felt less like illumination and more like a physical tearing of the fabric of reality. Ilara's spectral form was instantly caught in the beam. She let out a final, raw, agonizing wail that was both sound and silence. Her essence, her beautiful, terrible image, was violently sucked backward, not into the developing photo, but into the now sizzling, melting lens. As Ilara's ghost vanished, the camera, the instantaneous traveler, exploded. It was a small, contained blast, the glass lens shattering, the leather casing ripping, and the metal mechanism twisting and breaking apart. The final, developing photo, spat out in the fraction of a second before the explosion, curled and blackened. But it had captured the central moment, the light consuming the image. Maya dropped the shattered remnants to the floor. The force of the camera's death knocked her backward. She hit the wall, her head ringing, but she felt an incredible lightness. The crushing cold was gone. The possessive weight was lifted. The room was silent. The curse was broken. Chapter 20: The Aftermath and Epilogue. Maya woke up on the dusty floor of Ilara's dressing room. Her head was throbbing and her body ached. A moment later, a frantic light appeared in the doorway. It was Mr. Thorne. He must have followed her. He rushed over, his face pale with worry. a small, old-fashioned lantern trembling in his hand. "Miss Vane, are you hurt? I heard the noise." He looked at the shattered remains of the camera, spread like a mangled corpse on the floor. He slowly sank to his knees beside the pieces. "It's done. It's finally done." He explained that the ritual had created a symbiotic link. Ilara needed the camera's lens to see, and the camera needed her soul to function. The final forced dose of its own pure chemical catalyst, combined with an act of destruction by a non-Thorn, had overloaded and shattered the mechanism, severing the bond forever. They left the mansion together. Thorn was quietly elated, the shame lifted from his ancient shoulders. He insisted on driving Maya home. The next morning, Maya was a wreck, but she was free. She gathered the shattered pieces of the instantaneous traveler, the brass plate, the jade button, the twisted lens, and placed them in a small glass-fronted display box. It was a trophy, a warning, and a macabre work of art. She looked at her cluttered, messy apartment. It was ugly, and it was beautiful. It was hers. Later that week, she purchased a new camera, a modern, digital, mirrorless camera. She loaded the settings, adjusted the white balance, and lifted it to her face. She took a picture of her own reflection in the window. The resulting image was clean, sharp, and perfectly, simply herself. No shadowy flapper, no decaying horrors. Just Maya, a young woman, tired, bruised, but intensely, authentically alive. Chapter 21. The New Beginning. Months passed. The terror receded, replaced by a profound artistic realization. Maya was no longer searching for the perfect or the eternal shot. She learned that true beauty lay in the imperfect, fleeting present. She returned to her work with a new, sober intensity. She no longer obsessed over the hidden past. She focused on the vibrant, messy, temporary world around her. She photographed the steam rising from a cup, the blurring chaos of traffic, the honest lines on an aging face. But she didn't forget the curse. She created a new series for her first professional gallery show, a series of abstract, intensely dark, and beautiful images. They were extreme close-ups of the few salvageable pieces of film from the final, chemically corrupted shots. Titled, "The Shutter's Secret: Evidence of a Perfect, Failed Memory." The show was a critical success. People didn't understand the true horror behind the images, but they recognized the raw, undeniable truth and fear in the work. They saw the authenticity Maya had finally found, not in a camera from the past, but in the trauma she had overcome. Maya stood at the gallery opening, talking to a reporter. She was asked about the inspiration for the show. "I learned that when you try to perfectly freeze a moment forever, you don't save it," Maya said, a genuine, unburdened smile on her face. "You kill it. A photograph should be a window to the moment. If you try to make it an eternal frame, you just end up building a beautiful cage." She looked across the room at the glass case containing the fragments of the instantaneous traveler, catching the reflection of the light off the broken lens. It was a monument to the dangerous lie of perfection. Maya Vane was no longer the lonely observer looking for meaning in the past. She was a survivor, a documentarian of the precious, chaotic present. Her life, like a photograph, was still developing, but now the chemicals were set for a beautiful, imperfect finish. The end.